multiplying decimal numbers is very much like multiplying whole numbers, except at the end I have to move the decimal points. So let's look at 2 6/10 times 2 hundredths. I can treat this 2 6/10 like 26, and the 2 hundredths like 2. So 6 times 2 is 12. I can carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 is 5. So the digits in my product should be 5 and 2. Now let's look at how many decimal places I should have in my answer. I'm going to count decimal places in my factor first to help me figure that out. So here's 1 place after the decimal in 2 6/10, and here's 2 in 2 hundredths. So in total, I should have 3 decimal places in my product. So I'm going to start counting to the right of 52. So here's 1, here's 2, but I need 3 places, so I'm going to put a 0 in as a placeholder, and then put my decimal point. And if you think about it, this makes sense because 6/10, that's tenths, times hundredths should give me thousandths, which this does, 52 thousandths. So now let's look at 4 3/10 times 2 872 thousandths. Let's count the decimal places in our factors. And here's 1 place. In 4 3/10 I have 1 place after the decimal. In 2 872 thousandths I have 1, 2, and 3. So 1 plus 3 is 4. So in my product I should have 4 decimal places. So let's start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where my decimal point would go in my product. Let's solve a problem together. At an animal shelter, 64 hundredths of the animals are cats. That's 64 hundredths are cats. Of the cats, 63 hundredths are male. What amount of the animals at the shelter are male? So because it says of the cats, that sort of clues me into I want a part of the cats. And so that of usually means multiplication. Usually means multiplication. So I'm going to look at 64 hundredths times 63 hundredths. So as we said before, when we multiply decimal numbers, it's just like multiplying whole numbers. So I'm not going to worry about the decimal points until later. But let's look at how many decimal places there are. In 64 hundredths, I have 2 decimal places. And in 63 hundredths, I have 2 decimal places. So in total, my answer should have 4 decimal places. So let's start and multiply. So 4 times 3 is 12. That's 12 and carry the 1. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. And so now I'm done with the ones place. I'm going to put a 0. And now I multiply 6 times 4 is 24, so put down the 4 and carry the 2. 6 times 6 is 36, plus 2 is 38. So now I add 2 plus 0 is 2, 9 plus 4 is 13, carry that 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 8 is 10, put down 0, carry the 1, and then that's a 4. So now I have 4,032. Well, that's way too many cats. So I need to put in my decimal point. I should have 4 decimal places in my answer. So I'm going to start counting from the right. Here's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's where my decimal point goes. So really my answer is 4,032 10,000ths. If I want to round that to the nearest hundredths, I would go to the hundredths place, and then look to the right. That 3 is less than 5, so I'm going to keep the hundredths place just as it is. So really 40 hundredths or 4/10 of the cats are male. And that makes sense because 64 hundredths of the animals were cats, and only part of that 64 hundredths are male. That was the 63 hundredths. So in total, really only 4/10 of that 64 hundredths of cats are male. A geologist had 2 rocks that weighed 3 3/10 kilograms together. Rock A was 1/100th of the total weight. There's that word of again. So of means we're going to take only a part. So we're going to multiply of the weight. And so then we would set up the problem as 3.3 times 0.01. Let's identify how many decimal places there are in the factors. 3/10 is 1 place. In 1/100ths, I have 2 places. So in total, my product is going to have 3 decimal places. So let's begin multiplying. 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 1 is 3. Then we're done with the ones place, put a 0 down. Then 0 times 3 is 0, and 0 times 3 is 0 again. Let's add that. And 0. So now I look and see where should my decimal point go. We decided that there were a total of 3 places in the factors, so there should be 3 in our product. So here's 1, 2, and 3, and that's where my decimal point goes. So rock A really only weighed 33 thousandths of the kilograms.